Please welcome Adam Oxford! So between the break, the technical break, I tell you that I really enjoyed my time here in Johannesburg. It was really awesome.
Tell a joke.
I can't tell jokes, but last time I had Danny Day telling a joke.
Danny, tell a joke.
Danny.
I told a joke.
Okay, no a joke, yeah, no joke.
What? I actually don't have any jokes.
Okay, not prepared. Okay, I really love to be always in Johannesburg. It's fucking awesome to be here. Adam Oxford is ready, so we can start.
Yeah. Take Ben's minute. I'm going to put the microphone in.
Right. 3, 2, 1, start!
I'm Adam Oxford, and I run a website called HTXC Africa. So we do news, tech, games, and culture. I've never made a game in my life, but I have written a lot of news. I've also written a lot of news about games. In a previous life, I was the editor of PC Format, and I worked for PC Gaming UK on and off for about 12 years. I'm about 40, and even though I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of the latest releases, and I haven't yet played Destiny, I do still think of myself as a gamer. So my presentation tonight is going to be about news gaming, why I think South Africa is ready for news gaming. What is news gaming? It's not a new idea. There are books written about it. Three of the best-known news games are Darfur is Dying, Endgame Syria, and 1000 Days in Syria. But I'd also consider games like Depression Quest news gaming. I assume everyone's heard of that now. A text-based adventure through the mind of the manic depressive. I lived with manic depressive for 7 years, and I really relate to this. I think it's fantastic. I'd also argue that JTR 125, a game based on the life of Jack the Ripper, is news gaming, even though the events took place a century and a quarter ago. It's not exactly news, but it is an academic project looking at how to tell a story through the medium of games, while adhering to the editorial policies of an organisation like the BBC. One of the journalists who worked on JTR 125, Professor Janet Jones, was an editor on Panorama and Newsnight, two of the flagship current affairs programmes in the UK. As well as teaching and designing games, she's also advising London Weekend Television on how to set up one of those very games desks she's talking about there. The budget for that is in the millions of pounds. And this is the problem. Dr. Thomas Rawlings there has worked on most of the games I've mentioned so far. But I have a lot of hope. This is my motto. Everything I know, I learned from Civ. And this is why I think we should game the news, because games are great at telling stories. They're great at making us think. They're great at making us fill in the blanks. They're great at teaching us stuff. I learned everything from Civ. I learned from Total War. I learned from SimCity, Flight Simulator. I learned from Counter-Strike. That was the game that taught me the difference between a Heckler Koch and an MP5. About the same thing. What makes news games different is that they intentionally make us think. They may have bias, but they explore multiple ideas. Multiple sides of a story, just like a good documentary filmmaker. Here in South Africa, there are so many issues that could be explored through games. This is a country like few others on earth, where access to information is limited by bureaucracy and privilege, and understanding is limited by poor education. It's a country which is still massively divided, and different sections of society have absolutely no idea how the other halves live. And news gaming is starting to appear, albeit with a very South African sense of humour. You've all seen this, simple, scatological, topical, not quite a news game, but it's still great. Could you make a news game about Americana? It's a much more divisive issue, but it's enormously sensitive. But I do think it could be approached through gaming. This is a game from the US called BuildABetterBudget.org. It puts players in control of the entire budget for the US federal government. Asks you how to balance the budget and engage the audience through a game. One report into Americana looked at the percentage of overall company revenues that's shared out between miners down the pits, and found that yes, miners in South Africa are paid really, really badly. That's the kind of thing that you can absolutely work out by controlling sliders on a budget to work out, balance your meagre salary against your union fees, against your mining investment and so on. This is part of a shadow play by an artist in Jeppestown which tells the true story of a girl rescued from sexual assault by an old man who goes to jail for killing one of the attackers. It could be told to an international audience through games. Another artist in the area told us the story of a factory that had closed down, where the ex-workers were living in shacks on the factory floor. When I heard this story, I immediately thought of meeting the situationists in the sewers in the original Deus Ex. Game makers and players are still, in my mind, the true counterculture. Gaming reality is the new music, it's the new comedy, and it's the voice of the young and rebellious. I go so far as to argue that if apartheid was still being fought in South Africa today, the ANC would be distributing mobile games called Flappy Bertha. The challenge is not to trivialise the news or make the games too boring to play. Just remember, looking at the time,
1 minute,
that people have always had problems with new forms of media discussing serious ideas. This is what Abbot Johannes Trithemius had to say about the arrival of the printing press in 1493. If it's in print, it can't possibly be serious. In the early days of the BBC, presenters weren't shown when they were reading the news because it was told to put their faces on the bottom of the television would trivialise the news they were probably keep reading. I'd argue that creating news gaming is about exercising your right to free speech, and it's a new medium which the establishment doesn't yet understand. If you don't exercise that right, you will lose it. This is the ANC Youth League protesting against the officers of the Mail and Guardian in June this year. Endgame Syria had to be fictionalised in order to be acceptable to Apple for its iStore policies. Endgame Eurasia is, of course, a not too subtle reference to George Orwell's 1984. If you don't exercise that right, you will lose it. Don't let your games be sanitised and censored in this way. And if you're making a news game, this is the motto, and do contact us and tell us about it.
That was well done, man! Adam! Thank you!